Howdy, everybody. It's your main man, Anthony Brogdon, and I'm coming at you. Ooh, y'all gonna like this one today. I got a smooth guy on the show. Man, I tell you, he in Detroit too. And he and I were working this project that he came up with to help some youth from a school deal with the history and the wherewithal of Detroit, our town, right?
Right.
And it was like 5 or 6 weeks or something like that. But whatever it was, my man had a very brilliant idea, which energized these young adults. Not just young me, middle age. Let's call me middle age guy. I was energized. I truly enjoyed what he came up with. And then it culminated in a very nice art display at one of Detroit's premier art galleries. Oh, he's serious about his situation. And this was really good. And I watched him on a couple of occasions. I said, man, this guy deep. And then he told me about his latest project. And I said, brother, man, come on, strong inspirations. Let's get it on. And here we are today. I'm super excited. So everybody hit the subscribe button. You see what I'm doing. You see the people that's coming on here. Like the lady who grew up as a sharecropper living on a plantation. You ain't going to find her, for the most part, on any other platform than like on Strong Inspirations. Like the guy who the people, KKK people, came to his house in the middle of the night to lynch him. He came on Strong Inspirations. Or like the young man who, he was the DJ during the civil rights movement in Birmingham. So when things happened, he reported it. Watch those videos. Watch the one with Madam C.J. Walker's granddaughter, who tells firsthand the pressure she felt growing up under that legacy, and how so many of them who do grow up like that it's a mind thing that they go through. Watch those videos, and then hit the like button on this video because you're gonna love what my man got to say. Hit the notifications bell so you get a ding, a shock, a smoke signal, your lights flick, or something happens to you so that you know there's something new. And have you noticed that those who are watching me, I'm releasing at least one every day at 7 p.m. and even others throughout the day. I'm hitting you even harder. Boom, shaka lock. I'm not playing with you with this information. And then tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. Do that, my friends. I'm speaking often. I got a place I'm going to soon. It's called New Philadelphia, Illinois. The black man was enslaved, bought his freedom, bought land, was the first mayor of a town. I'm going there. I'm speaking there. That's just one of them. And there are others to come. And come on, everybody, get you a copy of the America's #1 Black business history book right here, Business in the Black. No, that ain't it. That's the title of my documentary. The book is titled Black Business Book. Get you a copy of this. There's no other book as comprehensive and easy to read. I add no commentary. And it's very reasonably priced. I don't need them in my basement no more. I want you to have them. So you can't say it's too expensive. You really can't. You'll see. And all that is on my website, businessintheblack.net. Now you hear me use this term strong. Strong is my favorite word in my world. Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that is the introduction to the Strong Soul Brother on the channel #1. Today, come on, introduce yourself. Let's get it on.
All right, what's up, brother? I'm Virgil Taylor. I do a host of different things. I'm an artist, I'm an author, I'm a poet. As you talked about, one of the projects that you and I worked together on was the Urban Requiem project that actually started, oh gosh, almost 20 years ago, working with young people in Detroit. It was designed to be a generational project, intergenerational project, with young people and elders working together to know the history of Detroit. Because unfortunately, we don't know our history. We only know a little bit of it. So as you were talking about when we worked on that one project with the Hannon Center, with the Detroit School of the Arts and elders from the Hannon Center to do an intergenerational project, which was an art project. And the
Right.
young people and the elders working together, the project was based on the 100-year history of the birth, life, and death of industrial Detroit.
That's right.
Work turned out to be a remarkable collage project that the young people did in conjunction with the elders. And then we reached out and we had several hundred pieces of art in the gallery at the K-Rod Gallery over at the Hannon Center. Was a wonderful event, wonderful exhibit. The exhibit was up for about 30 days. If I'm not mistaken, Anthony, you had a piece you put in there as
I
well.
sure did. You know,
And
everybody, I'm a little artist too.
right,
I
right.
can't
So
draw a
yeah.
straight line, but it would look cute.
Well, my forte with reference to art is I make jewelry primarily. I've been doing
Yeah.
that all my life. So, but I don't want to really waste a lot of time of yours today talking about that. My latest endeavor has
No,
been,
no, hold. I gotta interrupt you. I mean, no disrespect, but I want them to get to know you just a little bit more in this regard. Where were you born and raised?
oh, I'm a Detroit boy, born and bred. Grew up
Okay.
around Central High School, went to Roosevelt, Durfee, and Central. Although I graduated from Lansing Sexton in 1969. My brother was at MSU already, and he pulled me out of Detroit because the city was changing and I was getting in a little bit of trouble. And so pulled me out. So I graduated from Lansing Sexton. I'm a Spartan, went to
Let me
MSU.
ask you this then. In that regard, graduated, was there a different dynamic than Detroit than Lansing?
Oh my God,
Lansing
yeah.
is a small town community school about 45 minutes away from the city. Was that
Well,
different for you?
it's about an hour, a little over an hour from Detroit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lansing Sexton, but Lansing is the capital.
Right.
And so, especially during that time when Oldsmobile was there, Lansing was a very thriving community. And then you have Lansing, East Lansing, which is where Michigan State is. So it's a pretty good sized community. It's maybe the fourth largest city in the state, I
Yeah.
want to say.
Was there a difference in terms of you had more white people around you at that
Oh my
point
God,
when you
yes.
got there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was culture shock for me for sure. I went to Central, Roosevelt, Durfee, and Central, which, were pre predominantly black.
Yeah.
And so I had never gone to school with white kids. Was
Yeah.
totally unfamiliar. And so, yeah, it was a unique because Sexton was about 25% black.
Oh,
And
really? Okay.
the black people, in my estimation, the black kids there, they were just different from Detroit kids. They had they were different. I have found that throughout the state, though. Black folks
Yeah.
in different parts of the state are different than Detroiters because in Detroit's a predominantly black city, and very confident in its blackness. I'm talking about the folks here that live here in Detroit. So that's what I grew up with.
Yes.
And
Well, I want to stay on that just a tad, and then before we get back in terms of that experience, um, there's something to the dynamic of being around black people a lot, especially in progressive areas
yeah,
when
yeah,
we dominate the community at large, and compared to when we don't dominate. And you saw that.
yeah. I mean, absolutely. Um, I didn't live close to the school. So the communities I lived in with my brother we were like the only black people on the block in the neighborhood in the area. So and Lansing was a conservative community as well. So I never felt any threats or anything of that nature, but it was just different. It was drastically different school. As I always tell people, one of my first incidents at Sexton was a white kid. He and I don't even recall the incident, but he did something that, by my reckoning, um, I had to address. So I did physically, and I was shocked because at home, if you and I had an altercation and I I took an issue with it with you physically, and I came out on the top end of the physical altercation. That was the end of that. As far as we were concerned, you wouldn't do it
Yeah,
again. We wouldn't have any
yeah,
more discussion. That's the end of
right,
it.
Right.
I was stunned when they called me to the principal's office. He told, and I that was foreign to me. I was like, "You told?" I
Yeah.
mean, you did something that deserved you
Yeah. Yeah.
encountering
Did
my
Did you
wrath.
face the wrath of it though when that happened?
Nah, I didn't get in too much trouble. They kind of, as I look back on it in retrospect, they kind of chastised me as you don't know any better. I mean,
Okay.
you're from
Okay.
Detroit, you don't know any better, and
Okay.
we operate civilly is kind of the way they
I
addressed it.
got you.
From my
And that,
perspective, I addressed it civilly. I punched him
right.
in the mouth. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was, and he, as far as I was concerned, he had it coming, and he knew he had it coming. That's how I looked at it. And
Which leads to this question. Let me ask you this. When I'm a preface this way. I went to a camp as a kid. I went to two camps. One was an all white camp. Man, I had the best time of my life at that camp. Then I went to a camp with some inner city kids, and man, I couldn't wait to leave.
now,
I just, I mean, they were
ironically,
breaking into the cabins and stuff like that. Were you happy at when you finally said, "Man, I'm glad you got me out of that situation"?
no. No, no, not at all. Every Friday I was beating feet to get back home. I came home every Friday on the bus. Carl would pick me up on Sunday. I didn't like the environment up there at all. The only saving grace for me was I had an art teacher at Sexton who was a young brother, Larry Cross, brilliant artist, and he was the guy that introduced me to metalsmithing, and metal crafting and things like that. And so I was all in. Sexton was different than Detroit public schools. It was now I did like the school a lot better. Um, they really allowed kids to focus on their interest. I was stunned when I got there and they asked me what I wanted to major in, and I was like, what are you talking about?" In Detroit public schools, you had mostly requirements.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
Theirs was different. In fact, they had a shop, a auto shop building that some kids went to. I never saw those guys. They went there, and when they graduated from high school, these kids went immediately to working in the plant or at local auto dealers, making really good money. This you're talking about. I graduated in 1972. So when
Sure.
I had an art class, I mean, the bulk of my day at school was in the art class, and so Larry was just a brilliant teacher. So I did enjoy that. But as far as living in the community, no, I hated it. Partially, I hated it because you're talking about I think we're about in the same age. In the 70s, Detroit. I mean, you remember this is when television went off, and you didn't have very many television stations. This is
Sure, sure.
pre-cable and all of that. There's no black radio in Lansing. And the television stations were really limited. I think there were three of them. So it was a different environment. I also didn't realize how divided up the community was. No different than in Detroit, though. I mean, when I went to Roosevelt, Durfee, and Central, the kids that lived on Boston and Chicago were the children of people of means. And then
Right,
you
right,
knew what classification or what status people were in based on what block they lived on. I lived on Elmhurst,
right, right.
and that was a lower working class, middle class block. Um, so you kind of knew. Well, in Lansing, it was no different. You had the kids whose parents were lawyers, and they lived near the school. There was an area, I forget the name of it, but it was like the hood. I mean, it was the ghetto,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
and so, but they kept people relegated. You knew that people that lived in that little area, that was the ghetto. Then you had the
yeah. I
folks
got
that
you.
the bourgeois class
Right.
lived in the bigger houses that was closer up around the school. So it was an I look back on it now, and it was a enlightening experience. My background is very diverse
Yeah,
because of
sure.
that. Living in that community or going to school in that community did help prepare me for when I went to MSU.
Right,
When I was at MSU, I knew a lot, or I had a lot of friends that, needless to say, that came from Detroit. They were
right.
really ill prepared for college. I mean, for not necessarily so much academically as they were not as prepared socially for
Right.
living
I
in that
got you.
environment. I
I
had been
got you.
around white kids.
Yeah, I
And
got
so
you.
a lot of the
Let,
kids
let, let,
came up.
let
So,
me let me go
but
back
one of
here
the things
just to
I will say
let me
is,
no, hold on. Let me excuse me one second. I want to go back on your family just again. Do you know where the enslavement is in your family? I always ask
no, no,
everybody.
I honestly do not. What I have been doing recently, my parents come from, my mama came from Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay.
Her mother passed away when my mother was born around the turn of the last century. What I know is her father wasn't around. Her mother passed when my mother was very young, and my mother was a dark-skinned black woman down in that area. So I don't know how much she knew about her family's history. I mean, there had been no one to pass it on. My dad's family, conversely, was from Tennessee, I believe around the Knoxville, Tennessee area. And I think my dad's family, my grandfather owned a lot of property. He owned a trucking company. So my dad's family, they were working class folk. I mean, like hardcore working. It was a bunch of them, like 20 of my dad has like 19, 20 siblings, something like that. I don't know the exact number,
Wow.
but there's a lot of them. But my dad was very independent, and my grandfather owned businesses, in particular a trucking company, I believe, and some other stuff. And
Yeah.
he owned most of a town. My dad's side of the family was the light skinned, good hair folks.
Oh,
My mom was
oh,
dark skinned, and but my
okay.
dad, they don't operate like that. I mean, there's some bougie folks on my dad's side, but not all of them. But it's still light skin, good hair meant something in the 50s and 60s. I mean, it meant something.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no question.
Yeah, so I can't.
What shaped you to have your style and to choose the angles that you have in terms of art, youth, what have you?
Well, my mother, like my dad passed away when I was 8. We had a very close knit family, and my dad had been stricken sick right around the time I was born, so we didn't have money. But I didn't know that. My parents, as I always say, I wasn't raised poor. I don't know anything about being poor, because that just wasn't in our vocabulary. It was stuff you had, there was stuff you didn't have, but we had a clean home, lights on every day. They had 3 square meals. That was that. I mean, they
Yeah,
went to church on Sundays. We're a close knit family,
yeah.
just the 4 of us. And then when my dad passed, just the 3 of us. My brother's older than me. My brother's always been very driven, and so when my dad passed, he had instilled in my brother that he was the man of the house. So I just tell people, my brother was more like a father figure to me up until I was 25 before we really became friends. I mean, we were always close, but he was the man of the house in every sense of the word, even when he went away to school. So um what shaped me, though, my mother was a tremendous lover of the arts. My uncle, her baby brother, was an artist, but he was also he, he was a man of leisure, but he was also actively involved in the music industry. He was the Temptations and Supremes first manager. He brought Eddie and Paul up here from Alabama. I grew up with the Temptations Supreme singing in our basement
Wow,
before they
really?
left him. Oh yeah, left the classic story. His name was Milton Jenkins. So the classic story, they left him and ended up going to Motown. He married Florence Ballard's sister. So I grew up around the arts. In the '60s, Uncle Milt had a organization called Operation Soul, and he tried to work with he after he left the life. He worked with community kids. He had Operation Souls on Monterey and Linwood. And then we used to be over at the Constantine Center all the time. So I was always around these folks. And my mother was the same way. She was very engaged in getting Black girls in the community and doing things with them, and girls that were at risk. I didn't know that at the time, and my mama she didn't call it that. But the girls that didn't have mothers real engaged, my mother would get them all together and do different stuff with them. And so I grew up around that. My mother was also a tremendous lover of the arts, and she was determined she didn't have any education, but she's the wisest and most well-read person I ever knew. So on Sundays after church, if we weren't visiting family, most times we would be down in the cultural center at the DIA, the historical museum, the library. My mother instilled in us at an early age a love of reading. And so when my dad passed, now I know what a sacrifice it was. She bought us the World Book in Childcraft, and
Right.
I stayed in those books. Because back in the day, if you didn't know something, you go ask. And well, at least in my family, if I went to ask mom, the first thing out of her mouth was go look it up.
Yeah, right. I
And,
got you.
yeah, so that
Yeah,
was
I get you.
that fostered a love of reading, a love of learning, and because television was not a thing so
Yeah,
much.
I
You
got
had
you.
little shows you could watch and stuff you watched with your family, but well, no TV on 24/7. So, and I was an artist. So if I wasn't drawing, I was losing myself in books and stories and finding out about places. I had a tremendous curiosity about the world, and one thing would lead to another. I look up one thing in the World Book, or look up something in the dictionary, and then go to the library. You take out books, and flipping through them, looking at the pictures and all. So I had traveled the world by books as a child,
Oh, okay.
and
Which
then
which leads to what we're going to talk about. You've
right,
written a book now, right?
yes, right,
Tell
right,
us about
okay. Well, there's a backstory. I told you I make jewelry. Several years ago, I was dealing with a woman in Kenya. She's a Maasai. I was importing jewelry from her and selling
it.
it in
Oh,
conjunction
stop,
with my
stop. What's
own.
the Maasai mean?
Maasai is a tribe in Africa, and they're primarily in Kenya, Tanzania, down in southeastern Africa. You see them a
Okay, stop.
lot.
Okay, stop there. How did you deal with her? How did you find her? And this
We
is
met on
for
it.
people who might want to do business with Africans. How did you do?
I met her originally on the internet, on social media. I don't remember if it was AOL. I mean, it's been a long time ago. We
Yeah,
had we
yeah,
had done
yeah,
business for some years before finally I just decided I was going. Everybody was like, "Are you crazy? You ain't never been to Africa?" No, I hadn't, but I was inspired to go, and so I got myself together and I went. I made my own arrangements and I went and I stayed in. She was in the Mombasa area. I found a place and I stayed in Diani Beach, one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my life. Diani Beach is on the Indian Ocean. Kenya is on the east side of Africa, so that's bordering on the Indian Ocean. So I was in Mombasa and Diani Beach, and then I went up to Tanzania, and I met the Maasai, and I got the opportunity. But that whetted my whistle for wanting to know more about Africa, about wanting to visit other places. COVID came shortly after that, so I wasn't able to go back for a couple years. But I learned a lot on that trip. Meeting with her, meeting the Maasai people. It was just a fascinating trip. And I started learning about the diversity of Africans on that trip because there's a difference between people, the Kenyans and the Tanzanians. There's a pretty big difference, and they share a border.
give me an example of what that means. What you
Well,
found that to be.
Um, a lot of the people in Kenya, the Maasai for one, are strict adherents to tradition. And when if you see them, then you will say, "Oh, yeah, I've seen them before." When you see the African, the brothers that jump real high in the air, you see that a lot of times in videos. They have all the beads. Those are Maasai. They are herders and nomads by tradition. They've been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. In Tanzania, the people were different. There are Maasai in Tanzania. Tanzania also happens to be where Tanzanite comes from, and so there is wealth that, or mining that had occurred Tiffany and Company bought up most of the property there. In fact, I don't think you find raw mines in Tanzania anymore. But it changes cultures when big business comes in. Now they do have other things that they come to, but Kenya was colonized differently, and Tanzania, as I understood, was more heavily influenced by East India by India. So places have been colonized differently, and so depending, and I was surprised to find the number of Asians that there were in Mombasa. When I was down in around a very large mosque, I was struck by when time came
Oh,
for prayer. all these people converged on the mosque. They were all Asian. They were like no black Muslims. They were all Asian. But it seemed to be from different parts of Asia, not China or Japan, but other parts of Asia. So um, it's just a drastic difference. Africa is a continent and not a country where one of the things that, and this started me on my path, that we have a very narrow view of Africa. And why wouldn't we? Because we have a Western view of Africa, and we have a view of Africa that has been um, massaged, and most of it is wrong. And so we don't recognize, in my opinion, I can't speak for everybody else, but and I used to think about Africa, Africa.
Right, right.
Kind
Yeah,
of, I
no
mean, I
question.
kind of knew that,
Well, a lot of times we
yeah,
thought it was a country.
yeah, and we still refer, people still refer to Africa as Africans. Well, I mean, considering the fact that you can drop China, Russia, India, the United States, and most of Europe into Africa and still have room,
Yeah, that's
tells you
right.
a lot.
Yeah, that's right.
The maps that we see of Africa are wrong, and that is by design. They
That's right.
intentionally made Africa appear smaller so that it's relative to about the same size as the United States. This is just totally not true.
That's right.
So those things that they have instilled in us and that we've learned from the time, I mean, you and I grew up with Tarzan. I mean, I grew up
Right.
with
That's right.
depictions of Africa, the Ooga Booga Africans on the Little Rascals and on
Right.
the Three Stooges and in cartoons.
Right.
And so this is ingrained in us. So we don't know anything about Africa or the people of African cultures, and as I say, the nations of Africa, so-called Africa, because
Yeah.
generally would not have found people referring to the continent. They didn't know of it as, I mean, they didn't view it in that they were from where they were from. So
Yeah.
anyway, after that experience, when COVID was over, I had always wanted to go to Morocco. And so I went to Morocco next. Phenomenal experience. I landed in Casablanca, but I ended up my first day, we went by bus and went to Rabat, which is the capital of Morocco. Probably the cleanest, prettiest city I think I might have ever seen in my life. I mean, like you could eat off the street. Um,
Really.
Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, just absolutely beautiful. So, again, images of different places. And I expected Morocco to be exotic, and it is.
Yeah, right. That's what I would. Yeah.
Yeah, but extremely modern. But that's the capital of the country. And so this would be like DC, but minus the ghetto. I mean,
Right.
I didn't
Right.
see,
Right.
and perhaps
Right.
there was that there, but I didn't see it. So then I went into the Atlas Mountains. I didn't know in going to Morocco, I didn't know that the Romans had conquered most of Morocco. So I went to a Roman ruin, which blew my mind. I didn't know there were Roman ruins in Morocco. And the thing that killed the Romans was their own ingenuity. And this is the thing that they don't tell us about what happened to the Romans and why they failed largely. But the Romans had learned to smelt lead. And so a lot of what they did when they were building their aqueducts and even their utensils and things were made out of plates that were lead or lead
Yeah.
based. They went insane. They poisoned themselves, and little did they know. So
Really?
between
Oh
them,
man. Okay.
yeah, between them poisoning themselves, and I learned this from Moroccans at the site, and but between that and Mother Nature, they poisoned themselves, but also Mother Nature. There was a drought, and they were there for 500 years in northern Morocco. So the influx of people from Mediterranean people from that northern African area, and you get the people that want to argue about everybody's black. It's
Mm.
just not true. And it's
Okay.
foolish to make the assumption because you're talking about people on trade routes in close proximity to other places. These are people in Mediterranean Africa would be different from folks in when you come down around the Sudan and then you go further south. You're going to get different textures of hair and different colors of skin and all of that because you just have a mixing bowl of folks doing business. or traveling. And so you had trade routes. So going from there, then I went to the Atlas Mountains. Um, blow my mind again because the Atlas Mountains, I've been to Switzerland. I would have thought I was in Switzerland. This is in North Africa. So people go to the Atlas Mountains to go skiing. There's ski lodges there. Who
Right,
would think in Africa ski lodges? People up
right.
there on, like those European type motorcycles and a lot of big money, needless to say, lodges in places because this is beautiful. It's mountainous. There's stuff hiking and all of that. So you have Moroccans that come there or that have homes there and things in North Africa. So then I was in Rabat. Oh, then I went to Fez.
And let
But
me ask you this before you, while you're thinking about it, how do you get to these places? Now you fly in on, you know, Detroit to New York, New York to there, and
typically,
then yeah, how's
most
the route to
often,
trade?
most often, yeah, you typically will end up flying from Detroit somewhere here, New York, New Jersey, Boston. I've flown out of Montreal or to Montreal, DC. This last trip I flew into DC before, and then more often than not, then you make another connection in Amsterdam, Paris. Now, when on my last trip, and that's a whole nother story, flew from Detroit to DC, DC to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, and then to Nigeria, which still makes me mad to think about because I flew over Nigeria a couple hours to come back. But that happens. I mean, I've taken trips where you coming home from Boston, fly over Detroit, go to Chicago, and have to come back.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
the
I guess
nature
that's
of air
yeah,
travel.
right.
Right. So, but then I spent time in Marrakesh. Highly recommend it if you ever get the opportunity. Um, Exotic, beautiful, historic. I mean, just the places are just fun. I mean, the history and the learning about the people. And one of the things that struck me, I was talking with an old man, an elder in Marrakesh. He's a very proud African, and he will tell you that he's a very proud African. And it's interesting to look and see Bank of Africa in places and like that look like downtown Detroit looks now or something, but it's Marrakesh or wherever. But he was letting me know, he's like, don't get it twisted. I am African, but he was like letting me, but I ain't black. And he's like, don't get it twisted. It's a difference.
Hmm.
So he's a very and nothing, he's Muslim, nothing against black folks because they have a lot of black people that live there. But I think from the American perspective, we oftentimes want to assume that everyone adopts the moniker or the identity of being black, and it's just not true. They are where they're from. He, he's Moroccan and
What?
African.
So when you get there, and this is in the simplest form of question, I guess the first thing you do is go to the hotel, drop off your luggage. Maybe you might be tired, say, let me just hang around here. And then the next day you get on and have scheduled tours. Is that kind of
Yes,
usually how you might do it?
yes. More often than not, it depends on what my connection is when I go to a country. When I went to Morocco, I did go on a tour. I went through a tour company. So my days were mapped out for me. We would meet at breakfast and then get on buses and go to different places. Because I would never advise anybody to go to but no different than probably coming to Detroit. You better know somebody. I mean, what I
Okay.
mean?
Okay.
That's just the smart thing to do because you could very easily end up in the wrong part of anywhere.
Yes.
I was in Rabat, I think it was, and they told us, we had free time, and they told us here's the plaza. There's like a big, like kind of like, no, it wouldn't be Eastern Market, but a big plaza,
All right.
and a lot of shops and little places. And they said, don't go down there. Well, they should have never told me don't go down there, and I did, and I paid for it because down there was, I guess, a living air, but it was like a maze, and I got completely lost.
Oh,
Um,
really? Yeah.
yeah, you don't read the language, speak the language, and then it kind of felt like eyes were on me everywhere I went. It kind of felt like, oh man, and yeah, that was an ordeal because I finally made my way out of there, and I knew that I had gotten down by the ocean, But then again, I don't speak the language. Well, they had told me that there are minarets, those towers, the Muslim towers you see in countries. There was one in particular that was the highest one, and if I got there, I could kind of navigate my way back to my hotel. But I have never been so tired in my life, and nobody could help me. Nobody spoke English there.
That was a scary moment for a
It
second
was
there.
a real scary moment. Yeah, they all the people either spoke Arabic or French. And so nobody, I mean, like nobody spoke English, and that's kind of rare. But that was the
So
situation I found
what finally
myself
happened?
in.
Tell us the end of the story. How did you get into the hotel?
I navigated. I followed the minarets, the towers, and then that got me on Muhammad the Fifth Avenue, which is the major thoroughfare. It'd be like getting on Jefferson here. When I got to Muhammad Fifth Avenue, I knew if I kept following that in one direction or another, it was going to get me over by my hotel. So once I got down there, and then I started seeing places that looked familiar, and I managed to
Well,
get to the hotel.
one of the things I do, and maybe you might say that that's what that happened. You saw things there that if you had not had that adventure, understandably you wouldn't have seen. That said, "Oh, I'm glad I did that. Now that I'm home safe."
Oh yeah, I've had that happen oftentimes. When I was in Kenya, I was in a village, and somebody was beckoning me down a corridor. Somebody was like, and my people snatched me because I was headed dead down there. I don't know what was compelling me to go down there, but somebody was beckoning me. I mean, that's an experience I'm glad I had. It could have gone real wrong because if my people hadn't have caught wind that I was following somebody, I might not be back home now. Who knows?
So you
So
didn't go.
I did not go. My handler,
Yeah,
my people, my host, they were like, no, 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 and they snatched me and pulled me back, so
yeah,
I didn't go.
yeah, yeah.
But traveling throughout the continent is interesting to say the least. Every place is dramatically different that I have been. My most recent adventure was, as I said, I went to northern Nigeria. I went to Morocco. Last year I went to Ghana. I wasn't all that excited about going to Ghana because that tends to be where everybody goes that I know,
Right, right.
and I wasn't all that. But for some odd reason, I was compelled to go there, and I was very glad that I did. Um, I went through a black company. Uh, a friend of mine here, she's a client of mine actually, and beautiful sister, Amara, introduced me or suggested that I was talking about it on social media, and I was connecting with some brothers here who were from the continent, from Mali, but they were supposed to be connecting me, and it just wasn't feeling comfortable. Something wasn't feeling right. I started talking to these brothers over. They were connecting me, and you communicate a lot of times. You probably do this too through via WhatsApp and
Right.
corresponding with people over there. And I don't know, it just didn't feel good. So Amara told me about her daughter and son-in-law had a tour company they started in Ghana, in Accra, and connected me with them. Her son-in-law had just been installed as a chief in Ghana. Um, so installed is being named a chief, and there's a ceremony. So I don't know his ceremonial name, but he's a chief in a village there. And so I connected with them, and they arranged my tours and everything. And it was a remarkable trip. It was really a remarkable trip. The road to Kumasi. I went to Kumasi. I spent most of my time in Accra. Um, but I experienced some remarkable things. I'm glad I did. I didn't feel a connection to Ghana quite as much. And I couldn't say why. And it wasn't anything negative. I just
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah. Let me ask you
Um,
this: with this is a question, but I lead it in this way. If a person is going to Africa, would you say they do one or two of these three things? That first of all, they find if there's somebody in their town who's from there that maybe they get to know and tell, and that person might know somebody at home. Two, they try to get on social media and find some organization, company, or something in the industry that they work that they can say once they get there, they can connect with those people. That might be another angle. Like as you might have done and said, okay, I'm going to sunset part of Africa. I'm going to go someplace to look at a company that has the stones that I use, that is a jewelry company or something like that. It gives you something else to do to enhance the trip.
You know, I've been really fortunate. The sister, my first trip, like I said, and I fear what happened to her because we lost touch suddenly after COVID, and she had told me that COVID had wiped out their community, and then suddenly I lost touch with her. So I phone numbers don't work. She's no longer on social media. So I fear that she may have succumbed to COVID. She may have been a victim of
Okay.
COVID. But she was very, very, very good. I had come to trust her to a large degree, but I didn't trust her enough that I would not let her make my hotel arrangements. And she invited me to stay at her place, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. So I had done my own research, and I had made my own hotel arrangements. I stayed at a beautiful villa in Deaney Beach that was just absolutely phenomenal. I had like a one bedroom apartment there. She picked me up every day, but she tended to pick me up with a driver that I paid for most of the time. Uh, um, no, not most of the time, all the time. I paid for everything. So she was my tour guide, and she would bring her
Yeah, I
niece
gotta
and
say
nephew,
her
little
not paying
kids.
for it there. Yeah, she's doing you a solid. Yeah.
I could not have what she did for me would have cost me hundreds of dollars
I
had I
got you.
paid a
Yeah,
company.
yeah, yeah.
And I probably saw places there's no way in the world I would have seen because I was immersed in the community, in the culture. I went into the villages where that's her folks. I would have never
Now,
had
how'd you
those.
find her?
We met on social media, but I had known her for a few years
But
on
when you
social
say met
media.
on social media, what did you do? You put something out there, or yeah,
No,
what did
no,
you?
I was buying from her. She was,
Oh,
remember, I
okay,
was
that's the
telling you,
one. Yeah, right, right,
yes, I
right,
was
right,
buying
right.
from her. So I had bought from her for several years before we even started talking about the possibility of me going there. So that was the first one that wetted my whistle. Morocco, I went to a tour company, and that was a brilliant experience. Again, not something I could have done on my own. I mean, I went hundreds of miles. I went from Casablanca down to Marrakesh and then back to Casablanca, and we hit four or five. I stayed in four or five different hotels in Morocco. All of them five-star hotels. All of them amazing. So yeah, that's an amazing experience. So it's just I always tell people want to know what do you do. Everybody wants shortcuts. You do your research. You know, either
Yeah,
you meet people, and when I meet people, I'm cautious because, like anything else, there's some people that they're now this last trip when I went to northern Nigeria, and I have to tell you how that came about. But I didn't know I was going to northern Nigeria, and a friend of mine who goes to Africa frequently, when I started talking about, and I wasn't real big on going to Nigeria anyway, and he said, "Well, if you want to," he said, Lagos, first of all, is considered a super city. There's only four of them in the world,
mm,
much bigger than New York. Millions upon millions of people live in Lagos. He said, "Well, if you want to go to like a New York experience, you go to Lagos." I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm not flying halfway around the world to go to New York." So, in researching, I stumbled upon this community or this part of Nigeria called Kano, Nigeria. It's northern Nigeria. And when I stumbled upon this literature for Kano, I came upon it was called the Durbar Festival of Kano. It occurs the big Durbars occur twice a year in Kano and throughout northern Nigeria, but the big one is in Kano. And it's called the Festival of 10,000 Horses, and I had never seen anything like this, but I had imagined this from the time I was a kid. I used to draw these black men in these robes and these turbans, and my mom was like, "Where'd you get that from?" And I couldn't explain it.
right.
When I saw these images, it was what I drew as a child. It was these men in these
Wow.
lavish gowns and robes and big turbans on these horses, and the horses are laid out, and it's hundreds of them. And I started researching, and I contacted this company that was supposedly arranging a tour. And then they wanted me to send them a deposit cash to a bank in England. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think so. And so the minute I said no, they ghosted me. I couldn't get no more information on it. But I'm determined to go. Now I'm trying to figure things out. My brother's a professor at MSU, and he suggested that I communicate with a colleague of his and see if she could help me. So I did. Well, Professor Achebe, um, her father, have you ever heard of the writer Achebe, Chinwe Achebe? He wrote this phenomenal, the he was the man in Africa and Nigeria. He's world renowned for his literature, for his books and poetry. He's kind of the equivalent of like a Baldwin in
Okay.
Nigeria. So much so that when he passed away, they had a state funeral for him. He's that high level. Well, his daughter is no joke. Professor Achebe, Nwanda Achebe, and she is a endowed professor. She's a dean, blah, 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 blah. She wasn't sure. Now, she is from a different part of Nigeria, but she said, well, let me contact a colleague. She contacted this colleague that she had, who was a friend of her dad's, and he said, let me make some, you know, do some checking. Well, anyway, long story short, he ends up being a childhood friend of the Emir of Kano,
The Amir is what? The president
a
or something
king.
like that? Okay,
No,
yeah.
he's a king.
All
He's a
right.
king. And so Nigeria is really interesting because it's a large country, but there's southern, eastern, and northern Nigeria. Northern Nigeria is, for all intents and purposes, a separate country almost. I mean, it is all under the umbrella of Nigeria, but they are so different. There's little to no comparisons between the people. Kano, which is the largest emirate in northern Nigeria, which is where I was trying to go, is 95% Muslim. You might as well say 100% Muslim. They are Sunni Muslim. And so it is a very different world. It's a very, I mean, they practice Sharia law. It's a different world. It is going into it. So anyway, long story short, I finally started corresponding with the Emir. The Emir said, yes, you're welcome to come. And then he
Let me
put
stop you there. Let me stop you there. When you say corresponding, what are you doing? Sending him emails? Are you
email.
sending
Yeah, yeah.
letters?
No, email. Yeah,
So
email
you got an
correspondence.
email address for this guy and he responded to your email.
Yes. And
Oh,
we
okay.
started to communicate back and forth. And this, people have asked me, I'm like, you know what? When I look back in retrospect, none of that should have been possible. That was the hand of God on me through this whole thing. And so it was months in the planning, and he had people that he appointed to help me, once I got there. It was all on my dime and everything else. The process of traveling to Nigeria and many places in Africa is challenging, because you have to get a visa. I didn't have to get one in Morocco, but I had to get a visa for Ghana. I got one. Oh, I got one before I got to Kenya. I got one in Tanzania at the border. That was a whole nother story. And I had to get one before I went to Kano. And so I did all of that. And but my reason for going was to see this festival. They call it the Festival of 10,000 Horses. And they're very ceremonial. Everything is based on tradition. Now, bear in mind that this is a culture that goes back 1,000 years. The current palace, Gidan Rumfa, has been there for 500 years. The current emir was raised there. His grandfather was an emir. But it's a unique society and cultural experience. So the morning I got there, after I got through customs and immigration, which was a whole ordeal in and of itself, and I get outside finally, the first thing, it's 105 degrees. Every day I was there, it was 105 degrees. But they notified me the day I arrived, the Durbar was canceled. that's why I went, was to see this big parade and this big festival. And um, so needless to say, I was terribly disappointed. I've been flying for hours and hours and hours, and now I'm
Yeah,
here.
sure.
But what you gonna do?
Yeah,
Traveling abroad, be prepared to adapt. That's all you can do oftentimes.
yeah,
So I did have a beautiful hotel, and the Emirs people had recommended the hotel that I stayed in, and so I I'm dead tired, as hot as the devil, and I just go to the hotel and chill for a couple of days, and then I got there on Friday. I didn't do anything Saturday. Sunday they picked me up, and experience experiences I could have never in my wildest dreams imagined, and that's what my book is about.
yeah.
Discovering,
I
can you
definitely want to
see it?
talk about it. I guess, yeah, point it down. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, there it
Yeah,
is. I see it.
yeah,
The,
yeah.
the title
Discovering
of it
Kano.
is what now?
Discovering Kano. This is the
Okay,
paperback version. It's available actually in four different versions. Well, there's paperback, large and small. That's a small one. There's 6x9 or 8.5 by 11. Then hardcover, same thing, 6x9, 8.5 by 11. And then there's the ebook available, and that's through Amazon, but it's going to be available in other formats as well.
sure.
I did not set out to write a book. I did not set out. I've done one talk at the Hannon Center, but people started. I was sharing, which I do when I travel. I share my experience, and I'm a photographer from way back, and so I enjoy sharing what I'm experiencing. So I was sharing my experience, and so some people that I knew started really pressing me about, when you get back, you need to do a book. I'm like, I ain't doing no book, and you need to do a talk. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, maybe we'll see. But it just unfolded, and next thing I knew, I was doing this book. So it's a coffee table book. I did not set out to write, and as I tell people all the time, I'm no expert on Kano. It is filled with pictures. That's the whole purpose of it. It is to show this phenomenal community, this phenomenal region, this phenomenal kingdom, because before it became an emirate, it was a kingdom, it's a Hausa kingdom.
What's
Um,
an emirate?
an emirate is just a kind of a state, I guess you would say.
Okay,
So it'd be kind of considered a state. There's several, I think there's 7 emirates in northern Nigeria. So a lot of
okay,
what they have done, because they have been caliphates, and because of, again, the proximity and where they're located, these are places, they're in the Sahel region, um, the sub-Saharan trade region. And so because of that, they get a lot of people that have come, the Tuaregs, the Moroccans, different people that have come through for trading and going from one place to another. And this is what people don't get oftentimes about how things have evolved in Africa over hundreds of years. But so, these people that come through, and they're doing trade, and so that is how, like, there's misconceptions about how did an area become Muslim. They were not conquered by Arabs or Muslims. That occurred through the sub-Saharan trade routes, people coming
okay.
through. You had scholars and um, religious people. And so it just over time evolved. It made sense to those people in that community, and subsequently they adopted certain things. And so they became Muslim in
Yeah.
that particular region.
Let me go to the book right quick. What do you show in the book?
Pictures of my experience. And my experience was extraordinary. The First off, let me go back. I arrived at the end of Ramadan. Ramadan is, for those that don't know, there's several major religious holidays in Islam. Ramadan perhaps being I believe, I want to say, is the largest or the biggest religious holiday.
Right.
During Ramadan, I want to say that lasts for a month, I believe, but they fast from sun up to sundown. They fast. At the end of Ramadan, which the Sultan, who is in, I want to say, Saudi Arabia, They do this all based on moon phases. When the Sultan sees the moon phase at the end of the period, then he calls an end to Ramadan. So it's not like Christmas season here, which are specified dates. It's in a general time frame.
Right.
But when the Sultan says that, then brings about the end of Ramadan, and that then goes into Eid al-Fitr, which is the breaking of the fast, and then that goes into the Salah holidays. That's the period that I arrived during. The Durbar festival is in celebration of Eid al-Fitr and the end of Ramadan, and so it's this big thing, and it's where they call it the Festival of 10,000 Horses. And so these brothers come out in this full regalia, and you have to see it, and these pictures are in the book. These men in these
Okay.
amazing robes and turbans, and the horses are decked out, and there's they call artillery fire, and they ride in, and then they come to the palace where they come to see the Emir, or the Emir sees all of that. But it's every day is a different event. There's different celebrations.
Okay. I got you.
The Durbar
When
Festival was canceled
go ahead.
the day I got
Yes,
there.
I remember you said that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, I, but I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. I mean, what am I going to do? I'm here, right? They pick me up the next day, and we go, and the next thing, I don't know where I'm at, but there's all these men, thousands of men standing around in these robes and turbans. And Ahmad, who is my host, who is a member of the royal family, is introducing me to people, and some of them more elaborate than others. And some of them is very obvious that they are somebody, they have entourages. And so I look up, and the next thing I know, there's horns blaring and all of this. And here comes the Emir. He's on horseback. He's got people around him, and they're chanting and waving fans and blowing horns, and he's on horseback. And then behind him are these brothers on horses and camels. Some of them are beating drums. It's a procession like nothing I've ever seen. And he rides in to the palace gate. And then the mod tells me, come, come, come. Now, there are thousands of these brothers lined up. They got spears and swords and turbans. And he tells me, we're going to take cuts. I'm like, I don't want to take cuts on these cats. I mean, but I'm
Yeah,
not
I got you.
realizing he's a member of the royal family. They're not, and they're respectful. Everybody is terribly respectful. So it's no thing that I took cuts. And so next thing I know, we're in, and I'm at the front of the line, and I'm in one group, they're coming in groups, and we have to kneel down, and I got a bad knee, bad hip, and I managed to get down there. By the time I get down, they're popping back up. But anyway, they're doing the kind of swearing to support the Emir, pledging allegiance to the Emirate, and they're coming in groups of probably 30, 40, 50 at a time. They take me, and we go sit on against the wall. And Ahmad is explaining to me the men that are sitting in front of us, everybody's sitting on the floor. The Emir is sitting cross-legged up on like a throne cushiony thing, and he's got the Dagari, his bodyguards or security, they're around, they're fanning him, and it's very elaborate. And this is a building that is 500 years old, but they're coming in, and so the men that are sitting directly in front of me, probably 24 of them, are princes. Across the there's that big open area. The other side are kingmakers and noblemen. I mean, the important thing about all of this to me, and part of why I feel like I was supposed to make this trip, is because we don't see Black royalty, really.
Right,
Everybody run around talking about king and
right,
queen, but we don't know nothing about
right,
that. These are the Emir is a descendant. He's part of the Dabo dynasty. They trace their lineage back 1,000 years. His grandfather, now his father was not an emir, because it's an odd construct how that works. The emir, even though he's part of the royal family, has to be selected by the governor. So it's complicated. I mean, these things, but so that was one experience that I had. These brothers are coming in. We're there for several hours. There's no air conditioning in there, and they're coming in these bad robes, and bowing before the Emir. And so finally, when that was all over, I don't even remember what we did the rest of that day, but those were the experiences I was having. One day I was at Gidan Shatima, and I looked out a window, and there are these brothers in these amazing turbans. And I said to one of the people, because I had a team of people that were like assisting me. I said, "Who are they?" Because they look, I mean, their outfits are sweet. And
Right,
this is a
right,
younger guy. He says, "Oh, those are slaves." And I'm like, "What?" So another guy overheard it. He runs over and he says, "No, no, 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 no. They are, um, I don't know." But see, everything has a different connotation than what we know.
right,
It- it's not chattel slavery. Gidan Shatima was a slave's house. It is now the Council of the Emirates, where they have meetings. And so I was at that facility. But this was several hundred years ago. Shatima was a slave, but Shatima being a slave might have meant that Shatima was in charge of all of the servants,
right.
technically. And then they have bound servants. So your children, you're a servant, your children are the same. I mean, they come up under that. But a servant may be, you may be the administrator, you may be, so it's not the way we think of things. And I've had to learn
Gotcha.
that. Um,
Let me ask you this. Do you when you go, do you always, and I think this might be what I would try to do you always go knowing that there's a significant event going on
no,
and you're going to maximize the moment like you did
no,
with the Kano trip? Like, I want to go see this
no, no.
festival.
No, no. When I went to Ghana, I didn't have a specific. I just went. I had places I knew I wanted to see,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
um, but I did not have one of the things. As a jewelry maker, I wanted to go to the bead market where they actually, I mean, it's huge. I did go there. I did go to where they make kente cloth. I went to that facility where the brothers are still doing it by hand. I mean, traditions that, processes that have been hundreds of years old. I went here. I was intrigued by the Durbar Festival, did not know anything about the rest of it, and I have learned since then, and even since that, Ahmad got married since I've come back. And that process, watching his marriage over social media, has been enlightening beyond anything I could have ever imagined. I have some young men there that I'm in regular contact with, so I'm asking questions. I'm like, Ahmad's wedding was on a Sunday 2 weeks ago. I know it was a big deal. I start seeing all these pictures, hundreds of men, elders, brothers in these. I mean, you have to see the pictures of these brothers in these robes and these turbans, and ain't no women. I'm like, what? Where's his wife? Well, then they kind of, they indulge me for a little while, and then they're kind of like, you know what, you're a little out of order. I mean, they don't say that to me, but they kind of, I come to find out that a wedding in that culture can last up to 2 weeks. And so the first half of it is all about him. And he's coming out in his robes and his gowns, and he's got to go and he's got to see these elders. He's got to get blessings and, spend time with these brothers to sit around. And
yeah,
she, on the other hand, and then some part of the wedding is done by proxy. They have proxies that go to the mosque. There's a business component to it. So this is no small thing. It's no one day event.
yeah. I got you.
So there's an event. I mean, there's a day that the women take her. It's not a bachelorette party. It's like a grooming day where she gets with the old women, and then the women at night they bathe her and oil her, and she gets henna tattoos. And so then finally, the brother told me, he said, Ahmad may not ever let you see his bride. He may never put her on social media because that's up to him. Um, so, and while I was there, I had women asking me things, women that were, my followers at home. And people were, they're like, where are the women? And I hadn't thought about it at the time. I hadn't really seen any women.
All right.
And so I
Let,
did
let, let me
ask.
ask you this. Let me ask you this for the sake of time. Is there a channel that you watch, Facebook, YouTube, otherwise, that talks about all these African trips?
No,
Did you
no, I have
suggest
not.
people?
I have not. And that's one of the things that I'm looking at myself is how do right now I'm focused on helping people learn about this experience.
Right.
Where that's going to lead me, I don't know, but I feel that there is a serious need for us to understand the beauty and diversity of the continent, the people in the
Right.
continent. And to here was the interesting thing. My girl bought me for Christmas African ancestry,
Okay.
the
There you
DNA
go.
kit.
Yeah.
So I did it. I sent my stuff in right after the holidays, and I forgot about it. When I got back from Nigeria, my results came. Well, surprise, surprise, it turns out that my family, on my mama's side, is Fulani and Yoruba. Those are tribes from Nigeria. In particular,
Wow.
the people in Kano are primarily Hausa. They call them Hausa Fulani people. The Emir is Fulani. So it was funny because I remember sitting at one of the events and looking and thinking, they look like Uncle Milt. I mean, I've been seeing these brothers in
Oh yeah. Oh,
these
that's
robes, and
funny.
they look familiar to me.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
And but that is my DNA. And so when I thought back to even when I was drawing these images as a child, that I couldn't explain why that's in my DNA.
I
So,
got you. I want to
so that
circle back before the sake of time. How did you do business with the lady in Africa? How did you send her money? How did she send you what you bought?
yeah, with her, I remember sending money via Western Union, and I mean, there was you take a chance. She boxed up and shipped stuff to me, but you take, because you don't, you have to have a comfort level that you reach, but there's always a risk.
Yeah.
There's always a risk. I've had garments made in Ghana that I had a tuxedo jacket made by a brother in Ghana. I sent him pictures. I had already bought black kente cloth while I was there. I had that here, so I wanted more. But now I established relationships with people when I go
Okay.
places. So
Okay.
in Ghana, I have Emmanuel, Ricky, Eric. These are guys I communicate with regularly. Emmanuel's this badass tailor. He gets ambitious and don't listen sometimes. So he did this amazing. I got this tuxedo jacket people are dying out of for. The kente cloth comes from the shop where the brothers make the kente. It's black, all black kente. I had never seen that before. Emmanuel made me a black tuxedo jacket, but when I got it, it's a little bit tight, a little bit. And I had to go
Okay.
to my tailor here and have some adjustments made. I was not happy about that because he just got excited and he just didn't pay enough attention to what it was supposed to have been double breasted, but I meant my tailor here managed to fix what he didn't do right. So I'm
Yeah, well,
just saying
that
that
could
to say
happen.
that
Yeah, yeah,
you're doing business with somebody across, an
yeah.
ocean. You're taking a risk. So you sometimes I just had some stuff made in Kano. I just got it about a week or so ago. There's a couple things missing. I'm like, Sanusi, where's my stuff? And he started going back. I'm like, you gonna send me my stuff? Or I'm telling the Amir. So I, it's
Yeah.
like
So
I
how do you send them the money?
now I have things have improved over the years. I have an app on my phone. Um,
Well, before were you just sending cash, American cash, or did you translate
no,
the cash?
well, you send in no, it's not so much cash. It is yeah, I mean you paying in cash, but it's gonna be they're gonna receive it in their funds. So in Nigeria, it's in Naira.
Yeah. So when you send it being Western Union, they translate it. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what it. I mean, you
Okay.
know how much you
Yeah.
spend
Yeah.
on.
I got that theory. Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
they tell you, like for instance, when I'm doing the money in Nigeria is worthless. I mean, from our perspective, so 350,000 naira might be $150 or something like that. So,
Right. Right.
and you can Google the exchange rates
Yeah.
and stuff.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so, and there's usually a small fee. You pay. then they go, they have to go to a bank or money place and pick up the funds. But I've never had a problem.
Okay, good.
I've
Good.
never had a problem. And I haven't had a
Okay.
problem. Now, I will tell you this, I was flabbergasted and I think it's because of this trade stuff that Trump has done. My cost of shipping went up phenomenally, like triple when I ordered something most recently. And my people there were flabbergasted and I was flabbergasted. And I think it has everything to do with this madness that Trump is doing. So
Oh, my last question. Has the so are you a better jeweler now in your designs? Do you use your African experience? Have you seen something over there that said, "Oh man, I got to replicate this, and this is my ring. This is whatever you make."
I did some Indinkra stuff based around, but I think I actually did that bracelet for the brother when he was being installed. Amara had me do it for him. So that I did that before I went to Ghana. Everything that I see influences me. So
I got you.
um, I am going to do one of my plans is to do a big event highlighting African fashion. I'm talking with people right now about that. Again, I think that we are ignorant when it comes to African fashion. And when I say ignorant, I don't mean that as in a derogatory sense. We just don't know. And so
Right.
one day I was wearing something and a brother commented, he's like, yeah, it's the dashiki. I was like, no, it's not. And every place has their own names for stuff. One of the things that's fascinating to me about Nigeria, and I find this true a lot of places, they they cling to their traditions. And so their fashion in Kano, now I can't talk about um, other areas of Nigeria that I haven't been, but in Kano, the Hausa people, they've been wearing the same kind of outfit for many, many, many years. And if you go back and you look, you see that they've, pictures 100 years ago, they were wearing some of the same stuff. What they do is they pride themselves on, you will see the most amazing fabrics. I went to the textile mart there. It's 11,000 shops, and they are literally side by side by side.
Wow.
It is the largest textile fabric market in West Africa. People come from all over for these fabrics and textiles. So the brothers, when they get ready to do their thing, and if you look on my Facebook page, I share a lot of that because I've been sharing a lot. I'm developing
Right.
still my web page, but I want people to see this.
Right.
Um, I've been recently, the Amir be sharp is, I mean, is all get up. And I mean, his royal raiments, but his sons, the Crown Prince and Prince Anu, these young brothers, they come out and they be killing it, but it's all turbans and,
Yeah.
but I had an audience with the Amir, which was phenomenal. And it's
I
in the
bet.
book. And,
Well, hey man, I'm gonna stop there for the second time. I know we come back on now. You
okay.
know, we talk more about the experience. Everybody, strong inspirations. Hit the subscribe button. You heard the story. Hit the like button. There is no love button. Hit the notifications bell. Tell somebody about strong inspirations. I just do my best to ask intelligent questions and let the guests talk as best I can. And he knocked it out the box. He comes from Detroit, not an international city, went to a smaller city, but had big international dreams. And he told us about that here today. I'm so impressed with this, and it shows in uh, how you are in the aura that you have. Um, and this is going to be my last question. I want to ask this one. What has this done to shape these
Oh, it's
trips?
been tremendous. I have a stronger, more profound sense of who I am, uh, where I come from. I find that I feel a connection to these people in Nigeria. Haven't had the opportunity. The Emir I had no idea I was going to meet him. I hoped I would meet him, and I thought it would be a shake your hand, nice to meet you, get out kind of thing. He spent 3 hours with me or thereabouts. He took me on a tour of the palace. He showed me where he was raised as a baby. We went through his stables, his gardens, and his libraries, where the history of the Dabo dynasty is in those libraries. And so, and that, talking about 1,000-year history. And so I feel a very strong connection, and I want people to be aware, other people. Some folks may not be interested, but I am.
Yeah, I got you.
I take great pride, and it fills me with joy to see Black men, and I mean the regalia, when these brothers come through, and they look just like me and you.
Yeah, I got you.
You know, they look just like us, and but every shade in the Black
I
spectrum is
got you.
what you see. And these brothers, I mean, they carry knowledge and wisdom, and serious about their tradition. And so the young men, Ahmad, Sanusi, Muhammad, these are the three young men that I am in regular contact with. Very proud of their traditions. They have a holiday going on right now. It's right around it's the birth of the Prophet Muhammad. So they celebrate that right now. And so there's some more parades going on. So Sanusi was sending me, he was trying to live me last night. I was like, man, I can't watch a live on you're on horseback, so they send me pictures. I'm waiting, to get that stuff now. But it impresses me how proud, how pious they are, and how proud they are of their traditions.
Love it.
And
We're
that,
gonna
that,
stop. We're gonna stop there. We're gonna stop there only for the sake of time.
okay.
We can keep going, but man, this is incredible. Everybody, you heard what I just suggested. I'm gonna let you have the last word in 1 second. I want you to everybody go to my website, get a copy of the book, follow where I'm speaking, what have you. But and his website is under development. We're gonna have that under description as that comes on online. Everybody, and no, not everybody. To you, I say I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love who you've become. Everybody, thank you, my friend, for being on the show. We're gonna have him back. I promise you, because he's a good friend of mine. So with that, I'll say goodbye in America.
All right, brother. Thanks. I
All right.
appreciate you.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having me on.
You got it.
Okay.